This is a fire horse year. Fast, relentless, no patience for confusion. And if you start this year the way most people do, it won't challenge you. It will exhaust you. Because intense years don't reward effort. They punish uncontrolled momentum. Every time energy spikes like this, people make the same mistake. They add goals, they add pressure, they add noise. Buddhism has a word for that mistake. It's called ignorance in motion. In the lunar tradition, when a year carries fire and speed, you don't rush forward. You slow the mind first. You stabilize behavior. You build a container strong enough to hold the intensity. Otherwise, the fire doesn't illuminate, it burns. This video is not about motivation. It's not about manifestation. And it's definitely not about becoming a new you. It's about surviving an intense year without losing clarity, discipline, or direction. Buddhism has faced cycles like this for centuries, and it always responds the same way. With practice, not promises. 7 practices, no superstition, no spiritual shortcuts. Only what actually holds when the year moves faster than you expected. If you've ever reached February already tired, if speed secretly makes you anxious instead of excited, this is for you. Now let's begin, because the fire horse doesn't slow down, and confusion is expensive. The Lunar New Year doesn't rush in on January 1st. It arrives later, guided by the moon, reminding people that renewal follows rhythm, not hype. In many Asian Buddhist cultures, this timing matters more than the number on the calendar. It quietly teaches impermanence through waiting, transition, and preparation. Change in Buddhism is something you meet, never something you force. Culturally, this year is symbolized as the year of the fire horse. Not as destiny, not as fate, but as a shared metaphor for movement and intensity. Fire suggests speed, passion, restlessness. The horse suggests momentum and direction. Buddhism doesn't argue with symbols. It simply asks how the mind handles them. More energy doesn't mean better outcomes. It means clearer consequences. Traditional Buddhist teaching is very sober about moments like this. When collective energy rises, the risk of confusion rises with it. Desire accelerates, comparisons sharpen, and impatience dresses itself as motivation. This is why Buddhist practice never starts with big promises or bold identities. It starts with restraint, clarity, and the willingness to slow down. In monasteries aligned with the lunar calendar, the new year is not loud. It's often marked by cleaning, silence, offerings, and ethical reflection. Not because these acts bring luck, but because they train attention. Order outside reduces friction inside. Simplicity creates mental space. This is mindfulness wearing work clothes. The fire horse, symbolically, points to motion. Buddhism answers motion with awareness, not resistance. Right effort isn't about pushing harder. It's about moving without losing balance. When energy surges, discipline becomes kindness, not limitation. Otherwise, momentum quickly turns into exhaustion. Many people treat the new year like a courtroom. They prosecute themselves for last year's failures and sentence the future to perfection. Buddhism doesn't play that game. It recognizes karma as continuity, not judgment. What repeats matters more than what is declared. A year doesn't punish or reward. It simply responds. This is where the Lunar New Year offers a quiet correction. It says, you don't need a new identity, just a cleaner direction. No dramatic vows, no spiritual costume, no overnight transformation, just fewer harmful actions and more conscious ones. That alone changes the trajectory of a life. A simple practice fits this moment perfectly. Before the year starts, pause and notice where energy already leaks away, where speech harms, where habits numb, where intention blurs. This isn't self-criticism, it's self-respect. Clarity is the most underrated form of renewal. Buddhism teaches that intense times don't require more desire. They require better containment, like fire needing a hearth. Ethics, attention, and intention form that container. Without them, energy scatters. With them, it warms and sustains. That's why the first Buddhist response to a fire horse year is surprisingly simple. And that simplicity becomes the first practice. Before meditation deepens, before rituals matter, before goals feel safe. Ethics comes first. Not perfection, just a clean start. One precept at a time. A way to begin the year without adding harm to momentum. That's where practice number 1 quietly begins. Practice number 1. Precepts as an anchor, starting the year without losing yourself. In Buddhist tradition, a new cycle never begins with ambition. It begins with restraint, which sounds boring until you realize how freeing it is. Precepts are not commandments, they are training wheels for attention. They exist to prevent unnecessary damage when energy runs high. And in a firehorse year, that protection becomes quietly essential. The first thing Buddhism asks is not, what will you achieve? It asks, what harm are you willing to stop creating? This reframes the new year from a performance into a practice. Instead of building a new self, the listener starts by removing friction. Less damage, less regret, less inner noise. Traditionally, during the Lunar New Year, practitioners revisit ethical conduct, not with guilt, but with honesty and calm recognition. Speech is examined, habits are noticed, intentions are clarified. This review is not about moral superiority, it's about stability, because unstable behavior produces unstable minds. A simple way to apply this is the one precept focus. Rather than trying to be flawless, the listener chooses one ethical commitment. For example, no unnecessary lying for 7 days, or no harsh speech, even when irritated. Small restraint, practiced consistently, reshapes the year more than bold vows. Notice how practical this is. When speech softens, relationships calm down. When impulsive habits are paused, energy stops leaking. Karma, in this sense, becomes visible and workable. Cause and effect stop being abstract ideas and start feeling immediate. In many Buddhist temples during the Lunar New Year, people reaffirm refuge, not as belief, but as direction. Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. It's a reminder that ethics is not personal branding. It's alignment with clarity, compassion, and community. A compass, not a cage. This is especially important in intense years. Fire energy wants speed, expression, reaction. Precepts slow the moment just enough for wisdom to enter. They don't suppress life. They protect it from self-inflicted chaos. Discipline here is a form of care. A practical suggestion for the listener is to write one line. During the first 7 days of this year, I will not fill the blank with something honest and specific. No heroics, no spiritual theater. Just one boundary that keeps the mind clean. Books like The 5 Precepts by Thich Nhat Hanh explain this gently. They show ethics not as rules, but as compassion in action. Reading even a few pages during the New Year week sets a tone. It reminds the listener that freedom grows from limits chosen consciously, not from indulgence disguised as self-expression. Once behavior stabilizes, the mind naturally settles. Meditation stops feeling like a fight and starts feeling like rest. This is why Buddhism always begins with conduct, because attention cannot deepen in a chaotic environment. And that prepares the ground for the next practice. With ethics as an anchor, the year no longer feels like a runaway horse. Energy is still there, but it has direction. The listener isn't forcing calm, they're allowing it. And that opens the door to something very simple, very powerful. In the next topic, that door is mindfulness before the world begins. Practice number 2. Mindfulness before the world begins, 10 minutes before the phone. Buddhism doesn't ask for long retreats to start the year. It asks for one protected moment before the world grabs the mind. The Lunar New Year, arriving later and quieter, mirrors this principle perfectly. Before action, there is attention. Before movement, there is awareness. That's where the day and the year should actually begin. In a firehorse year, mornings set the tone more than intentions do. Energy is already high, thoughts already racing toward plans and worries. If the first input is noise, the mind stays noisy all day. Mindfulness interrupts that chain at its weakest link, the beginning. 10 minutes is enough to change the trajectory. The practice itself is deliberately simple. Sit, breathe, feel the body. Notice the mind without correcting it. No visualization, no affirmations, no spiritual performance. just contact with what is already happening. This is meditation as observation, not self-improvement. In Buddhist monasteries, this kind of simplicity is non-negotiable. The day starts with attention before speech, tasks, or decisions. Not because monks are special, but because minds work the same everywhere. Attention placed early saves effort later. Discipline up front reduces repair work at night. A practical way to apply this is to delay the phone. No messages, no news, no scrolling for the first 10 minutes awake. The listener sits on the edge of the bed or on a chair. Breath in, breath out, noticing thoughts like weather passing through. This trains non-attachment before the world tests it. At first, the mind will complain. It will say this is boring, useless, or a waste of time. Buddhism treats that voice as just another passing phenomenon. Discomfort here is not failure, it's conditioning being exposed, and exposure is how patterns lose authority. Over time, this small ritual becomes a refuge. The listener begins the day from choice, not reaction. Anxiety still appears, but it no longer drives the schedule. Attention becomes something the listener owns, not rents out. That shift is subtle but profound. This practice also changes how goals are held. Instead of chasing the day, the listener meets it. Decisions feel clearer, speech slows down, urgency softens. The firehorse energy doesn't disappear, it becomes usable. Momentum turns into direction. For guidance, Mindfulness in Plain English by Bhante Gunaratana is a classic. It strips meditation down to its essentials without mysticism. Even reading a few pages alongside this practice reinforces clarity. The listener learns that mindfulness is not about calm feelings. It's about honest contact with reality. Once attention is trained each morning, something interesting happens. The mind becomes more sensitive to clutter, external and internal. Disorder starts to feel heavy instead of normal. This naturally leads to the next step of the New Year practice, because awareness eventually asks for letting go, not just noticing. Practice number 3, a letting go ritual. Release the old year without superstition. In Buddhist cultures aligned with the Lunar New Year, letting go comes before asking for anything new. Not because the past was bad, but because carrying it forward unconsciously is heavy. Impermanence isn't an idea here, it's a practical instruction. If something has ended, it deserves to end fully. Otherwise, it keeps repeating under a different name. Many ancestral rituals around the Lunar New Year involve cleaning, sorting, and discarding. Buddhism keeps the action and removes the superstition. The point isn't luck, it's attention. When the hands clean, the mind clarifies. When objects are released, attachment becomes visible. This practice starts with the physical world. The listener chooses one small space, a drawer, a desk, a digital folder. Not the whole house, just one contained area. Items are touched slowly, with awareness of what still serves and what doesn't. Non-attachment begins with honest contact, not force. As things are released, something subtle happens. Memories surface, emotions appear. Stories try to negotiate their survival. Buddhism doesn't push these away. It lets them arise, be felt, and pass. This is meditation disguised as ordinary action. The firehorse year symbolically emphasizes speed and movement. Letting go creates space, so movement doesn't become chaos. Without release, energy has nowhere to flow except into repetition. Old patterns love new calendars. This ritual quietly interrupts that loop. After the physical space, the practice turns inward. The listener writes 3 short lines. One habit I'm done feeding. One resentment I no longer rehearse. One expectation I release. No justification, no analysis, just naming. This isn't forgiveness theater or emotional bypassing. It's recognition that clinging consumes energy. Buddhism teaches that holding on hurts more than letting go, not because loss is pleasant, but because attachment is exhausting. Freedom often feels like relief before it feels like joy. Some Buddhist temples burn symbolic papers during the new year, not to destroy karma, but to mark transition. Fire here is not magical, it's instructional. It shows how quickly form becomes ash and how little actually needs to be carried forward. The listener can adapt this safely, Tear the written lines and discard them mindfully. Pause, breathe, and notice what remains when the story ends. This moment of emptiness is not loss, it's capacity. Space is what allows intention to land. Texts like The Wisdom of No Escape by Pema Chodron speak to this directly. They explain why letting go feels uncomfortable before it feels honest. Reading a passage during this ritual deepens its effect. The mind learns that release is a skill, not a mood, and skills improve with repetition. Once the old year is released, comparison weakens. The listener stops measuring progress against ghosts. Energy becomes available for something gentler and more powerful. Not ambition, but goodwill. That's why the next practice turns toward compassion, not achievement. Practice number 4, metta, loving kindness, as an antidote to anxiety and comparison. As the year turns and comparison quietly sharpens its teeth, people measure progress, happiness, success, and calm as if life were a race. In a firehorse year, this tendency accelerates. Energy rises, ambition flares, and the mind starts scanning for proof of worth. Buddhism responds with something radically non-competitive, metta. Metta is often translated as loving kindness, but that sounds softer than it is. It's not sentimentality, it's training the mind away from hostility. Hostility toward others, yes, but especially toward oneself. Comparison is just self-aggression wearing a polite mask. Metta disarms that pattern at its root. Traditionally, metta is practiced daily and especially in unstable times. When the external world feels intense, goodwill becomes an anchor. The practice doesn't deny difficulty, it changes how the heart meets it. Instead of tightening, the mind learns to open without collapsing. That balance is rare and powerful. The basic form is simple and repeatable. The listener sits quietly and brings to mind 4 phrases. May I be safe? May I be steady? May I be free from unnecessary suffering? These are not wishes, they're orientations. Once the phrases settle, the circle widens. A neutral person appears, someone seen but not known. Then someone difficult, not the worst, just mildly irritating. Metta doesn't excuse behavior, it releases obsession with it. The fire of reactivity loses fuel. During the Lunar New Year, many Buddhist communities emphasize harmony, not forced cheer, but deliberate softening of mental edges. Metta supports this by reducing the urge to compare paths. Each person's karma unfolds differently, at a different pace. Compassion recognizes this without judgment. A practical way to apply metta in daily life is interruption. When comparison arises online, at work, in family spaces, the listener pauses. One quiet phrase is repeated internally. Just like me, they want peace. This simple recognition dissolves the imagined hierarchy. Energy returns to the present moment. Metta also protects momentum. Without it, intensity turns into burnout. With it, effort remains warm instead of brittle. This is why Buddhist teachers often pair compassion with discipline. Kindness keeps effort sustainable. For deeper guidance, Loving Kindness by Sharon Salzberg offers clear structure. It explains how goodwill can be trained without forcing emotion. Reading alongside practice helps normalize resistance and doubt. Metta doesn't require feeling good, it requires showing up. And that consistency reshapes the year. As compassion stabilizes, something unexpected happens. The urge to hoard energy fades. The listener begins to feel naturally inclined to share, not from obligation, but from overflow. That shift opens the door to the next practice, generosity as circulation. If this perspective on the Lunar New Year and the Firehorse year is helping you slow down and see more clearly, take a second to support the channel. A simple like tells the algorithm this kind of grounded spirituality matters. Subscribe if you want more Buddhist practices that actually work in real life, not just ideas, but things you can live. And turn on notifications so you don't miss the next steps in this series. Now, here's a question worth sitting with. Which of these practices feels most necessary for you right now as this new cycle begins? Share your answer in the comments. Sometimes naming it is already the first practice. Practice number 5, Dana, generosity as circulation, not sacrifice. In Buddhist teaching, generosity is never framed as loss. Dana is described as circulation, energy that moves instead of stagnates. During the Lunar New Year, this practice becomes especially visible in temples and homes. Offerings are made, food is shared, help is extended quietly, not to earn luck, but to keep the heart from hardening. In a fire horse year, intensity can turn inward and burn. Ambition tightens, fear hoards, comparison isolates. Dana counters this by redirecting attention outward. It reminds the listener that life is relational, not transactional. What flows tends to stay alive. Traditionally, generosity comes early in the Buddhist path, before deep meditation, before insight, before wisdom is claimed, because a clenched heart cannot see clearly. Dana softens the inner grip that fuels craving and anxiety. It prepares the ground for steadiness. This doesn't require grand gestures or public virtue. Buddhism values small, consistent acts done without performance, paying for someone's meal anonymously, listening without interrupting, giving time, presence, or patience where it's least convenient. During the Lunar New Year, many Buddhist communities focus on merit. Merit here is not a score, it's momentum. When generosity is practiced, the mind experiences immediate relief. The story of me versus the world loosens. Karma becomes something shaped consciously, not feared abstractly. A simple application is to choose one channel of giving for 7 days, not 10 causes, not impulsive generosity fueled by guilt. One direction, one intention, one rhythm. This could be donating food, supporting a temple, or helping a neighbor. Consistency matters more than quantity. What often surprises people is how generosity stabilizes energy. Instead of draining, it grounds. Instead of scattering attention, it organizes it. The fire horse energy, once shared, becomes warm rather than restless. Movement finds purpose. Dana also works internally, letting someone else be right, releasing the need to be seen as generous, allowing silence instead of filling space with advice. These are invisible gifts, but powerful ones. For deeper understanding, The Art of Happiness by the Dalai Lama touches on this gently. It shows how generosity is less about morality and more about mental health. A giving mind suffers less because it resists less. Reading alongside practice clarifies this immediately. Theory meets lived experience. As generosity becomes natural, something shifts again. The listener begins to act without calculating return. Trust replaces tension, and the year starts to feel less like a test and more like a shared journey. This sets the stage for the next practice: how to set intentions without turning them into self-violence. Practice number 6, right intention and goals, acting without self-punishment. Buddhism doesn't reject goals, it questions the mindset behind them. Right intention asks why the listener wants change before asking what will change. In the new year, goals are often fueled by shame, comparison, or fear of falling behind. That kind of motivation burns fast and leaves damage. A fire horse year exposes this quickly. Right intention shifts the axis from outcome to direction. Instead of asking, "How do I become better than I was?" the listener asks, "What direction reduces suffering for myself and others?" This single reframe changes everything. Effort becomes steadier, less violent, more honest. In traditional Buddhist practice, intention is set daily, not annually. It's reviewed in the morning and adjusted in the evening. That rhythm prevents fantasy from replacing discipline. A year is built from days, not declarations, and days respond better to clarity than pressure. A practical way to apply this is to rewrite goals as practices, not "I will be calmer," but "I will sit for 10 minutes each morning," not "I will stop procrastinating," but "I will begin one task before checking messages." This keeps the mind in contact with action, not identity. Right intention lives in behavior, not slogans. The firehorse symbolism warns against impulsive overcorrection. Big swings often hide unresolved discomfort. Buddhism prefers small adjustments done consistently. A mind that feels safe doesn't rebel against discipline. It cooperates. Many people secretly use goals to punish themselves for the past. Buddhism sees this clearly and steps aside. Karma isn't paid back through suffering. It's reshaped through awareness. Self-punishment doesn't purify intention, it distorts it. Right intention is firm but never cruel. One helpful exercise is the 3 intentions check. Before committing to a goal, the listener asks, does this reduce harm? Does this increase clarity? Does this support compassion? If not, the goal needs revision. This approach also protects energy. Instead of chasing 10 improvements, the listener commits to one direction. Fire energy becomes focused rather than scattered. Progress feels quieter but more real. The nervous system stays involved instead of overwhelmed. Books like The Eightfold Path by Bhikkhu Bodhi clarify this deeply. They show how intention sits at the center of all action. Reading even small sections alongside this practice sharpens discernment. The listener learns to trust direction over intensity and patience over performance. As intention stabilizes, another need becomes obvious. No one sustains practice alone for long. Even disciplined minds need reflection, mirroring, and rest. This is where Buddhism introduces balance between people and silence, and that becomes the next practice, Sangha and stillness held together. Practice number 7, Sangha and silence, community without losing yourself. Buddhism never imagined awakening as a solo project. Sangha community exists because practice weakens in isolation. At the same time, Buddhism never confuses togetherness with noise. A firehorse year amplifies both risks, loneliness on one side, overstimulation on the other. This practice teaches balance between support and stillness. Sangha doesn't mean agreement or constant closeness. It means choosing environments that support clarity rather than feed confusion. In traditional settings, practitioners gather to sit, chant, study, and then disperse. Connection is intentional, not consuming. Presence replaces performance. During the Lunar New Year, temples often become gathering points. People come not to be entertained, but to remember direction. There is shared silence, shared ritual, shared restraint. The community holds the individual when motivation wavers, and the individual returns strength to the group. For modern listeners, Sangha may not look like a monastery. It might be one person who practices sincerely. It might be a weekly group, a class, or a quiet online space. The key question is simple. Does this connection reduce delusion or increase it? Buddhism measures community by its effect on the mind. Silence is the counterweight that keeps Sangha healthy. Without silence, community turns into distraction. Without community, silence turns into avoidance. The Buddha taught both because the mind needs reflection and correction. Stillness reveals patterns, others help us see them. A practical application is to schedule both deliberately, 1 moment each week for shared practice or conversation, 1 moment each day for complete quiet, even if brief. No advice, no input, no identity management, just awareness returning to itself. Firehorse energy pushes toward constant movement. Messages, plans, opinions, reactions multiply quickly. Silence interrupts this momentum without suppressing life. It allows energy to settle instead of scatter. Depth replaces urgency. This practice also protects boundaries. Not every invitation deserves a yes. Not every opinion needs engagement. Sangha is chosen, not absorbed by default. This discernment preserves compassion without burnout. For guidance, many turn to The Buddha is Still Teaching by Jack Cornfield. It offers short reflections suited for communal reading or quiet review. These texts remind the listener that wisdom matures in relationship, but only when relationship is paired with inward listening. Balance, again, is the point. As Sangha and silence stabilize, the year gains resilience. Practice no longer depends on mood or inspiration. Support exists, but so does inner refuge. This combination allows the listener to move through intensity without fracture. And it prepares the ground for the final teaching, a story that brings all 7 practices together. The traditional story, the monk, the fast year, and the slow step. There is an old monastic story often shared at the beginning of intense cycles, not tied to astrology, not fixed to a date, just human enough to repeat itself. A layman once approached a senior monk at the start of the Lunar New Year. He bowed and said, "This year feels fast already. I'm afraid I won't keep up." The monk smiled, not kindly but knowingly. The layman explained his worry. Plans were many, responsibilities heavier, time thinner than before. He had made resolutions in past years and watched them collapse by spring. "This year," he said, "I want to move faster so I don't fall behind." The monk listened without interrupting. Instead of offering advice, the monk stood up. He walked slowly to the doorway of the hall. Each step was deliberate, unhurried, almost exaggerated. Then he stopped and asked, "Did the ground move faster because the year changed?" The question landed harder than a lecture. The layman hesitated. "No," he said, confused. "The ground is the same," the monk replied, "and yet you want to run as if it were on fire." Silence followed, thick and uncomfortable. The monk then picked up a candle. "This flame," he said, "can warm a room or burn it down. The fire isn't the problem. Direction is." He placed the candle inside a simple clay holder. Only then did the flame become steady. "This year," the monk continued, "has much movement. Movement without a container scatters the mind. So we begin by building the container. Ethics, attention, compassion, generosity." He named them slowly. "Then the fire serves you instead of consuming you." The layman asked what step he should take first. The monk answered, "The next one. Not the fastest, not the biggest, just the next step taken fully. A slow step done consciously outruns 100 rushed ones." The layman bowed again, this time without urgency. Years later, the story says, the layman became known for steadiness. Not brilliance, not speed, but reliability. When others burned out, he remained. When cycles intensified, he didn't resist them. He walked with them. This story survives because it mirrors experience. Intense years don't require more effort. They require better footing. The fire horse doesn't need to be stopped. It needs guidance. And guidance comes from practice, not prediction. The year moves fast. The path does not. Every practice shared so far builds that container. Ethics slows harm. Mindfulness steadies attention. Letting go clears weight. Compassion softens comparison. Generosity circulates energy. Right intention gives direction. Sangha and silence provide support. Together, they teach how to walk when time feels urgent. What remains now is not philosophy, but application. Stories point it, but habits carry. A year is crossed one day at a time. And the listener doesn't need all practices at once. They need a rhythm that holds when enthusiasm fades. That rhythm becomes visible when practice is arranged simply. Not idealized, not heroic, just repeatable. Something that fits real life, not imagined discipline. This is where everything converges into a workable shape, and that shape becomes the final offering. A 30-day path through an intense year. Here it is. A 30-day plan to move through an intense year without losing your center. Buddhism never asks for lifelong commitment all at once. It works in windows, days, weeks, cycles that can actually be lived. 30 days is long enough to build momentum and short enough to stay honest. In an intense year, this kind of structure matters more than inspiration. Practice needs a container, just like fire. The first 7 days are about stabilization. One precept is chosen and held gently, without negotiation. Each morning begins with 10 minutes of mindfulness before the phone. No fixing, no improving, just noticing and not adding harm. This sets the nervous system into a cooperative mode. Days 8 to 14 introduce release and compassion. One small letting go ritual is repeated during the week. Not everything at once, just one space, one habit, one story. Alongside that, a daily metta practice softens inner resistance. Effort stays warm instead of rigid. Days 15 to 21 focus on circulation and direction. One clear act of generosity is practiced consistently, not impulsively, not performatively, just reliably. At the same time, one intention is reviewed each morning. Direction replaces pressure, clarity replaces urgency. The final week brings support and quiet together. At least one moment of shared practice or sincere conversation, and one daily moment of silence with no input at all. This balance prevents both isolation and overwhelm. The mind learns it doesn't have to choose extremes. What's important is what's not on this plan. No tracking apps, no dramatic milestones, no identity declarations. Buddhism doesn't measure growth by excitement. It looks for reduced harm, steadier attention, softer reactions. Those changes are subtle but unmistakable. Some days will feel ordinary, others will feel resistant, restless, or dull. This is not failure, it's conditioning surfacing. The plan works precisely because it doesn't depend on mood. Consistency does the heavy lifting. By the end of 30 days, nothing magical has happened. And that's the point. The listener hasn't become a new person, they've become more present. Energy feels less scattered, effort less violent. The year stops feeling like something to survive. The fire horse symbolism now makes sense. Fire contained becomes warmth. Movement guided becomes progress. Intensity held with care becomes vitality. This is how Buddhism responds to fast years. The practices don't end at day 30, but they no longer feel theoretical. They've been tested in real conditions, and the listener knows which ones hold under pressure. That knowledge is worth more than motivation. Buddhism teaches that a good year isn't one without difficulty. It's one where difficulty doesn't steal direction. Practice doesn't eliminate challenge. It trains relationship with it. And that training is always available, regardless of the calendar. The year moves on, but the path remains underfoot. So, the Buddhist way, the Buddhist step should be walking the year instead of racing it. If there's one thing Buddhism keeps repeating, it's this: a good year isn't defined by what happens to you, but by how you meet what happens. Intensity will come, movement will increase, plans will change. The fire horse doesn't slow down for anyone, but you don't have to run just because the year feels fast. These 7 practices were never meant to be inspirational ideas. They're tools, quiet ones, that work precisely when motivation fades. Ethics to reduce harm, attention to steady the mind, letting go to lighten the load, compassion to soften comparison, generosity to keep energy flowing, right intention to guide effort, sangha and silence to hold everything together. You don't need to practice all of them perfectly. You don't need a new identity, a new label, or a dramatic reset. You just need to choose one practice and walk it consistently. One slow step taken with awareness will always outrun rushed ambition. That's how years stop breaking people and start shaping them. So here's the real question to leave with you. Which of these practices are you actually willing to live this year? Not admire, not save, not promise, but practice, especially when no one is watching. If this perspective helped you see the new year differently, support the channel. Leave a like so this kind of grounded, practical Buddhism reaches more people. Subscribe if you want teachings that work in real life, not just in theory. And turn on notifications so you don't miss what comes next. Before you go, share this in the comments. Which practice felt most necessary for you right now and why? Sometimes naming the path is already the first step on it.